All right. Well, Averages Over, Chapter 7, presented by Michael Lay, Team Lavender. My teammates are Morley Younger and Matthew Duff. Introduction. I'll be going over similar to what you've been hearing this whole presentation, but the first one is Averages Over, Extra in a Hyperconnected World, 4 Mindsets, Steve Jobs' Safer Speech, and Examples of Collaboration. Averages Over. A quote by Woody Allen saying 90% of life is just showing up is today no longer acceptable because technology, as someone mentioned earlier, and people's skills are advancing so much that it's hard to say what is average is now. Average is always increasing as time goes by. Another example is Greenville College. Greenville College had 220 Chinese applicants one year, and 43.1% of them scored 800 on the ACT, which is a perfect score on the math section. So it's really hard to say what average is now because of how everything has developed over the years. Extra in a hyperconnected world. Extra is defined by Friedman as the way an individual invents or reinvents a routine task in a new and better way. Friedman also goes along to say that he uses extra to implement that with collaboration around the world because although an individual has extra, it's pretty much useless unless you can communicate that with others. And he uses an example in Wired magazine by Chris Anderson explaining that anyone who has the internet and a little bit of expertise can go a long way. They can create a company pretty much at a touch of a button. 4 mindsets. Friedman explains that there are 4 specific ways to think to pretty much improve an individual's skill set, I guess you'd say. The first one is immigrant. I guess my parents would be a good example of this statement because they moved here about 30 years ago and they had this mindset that like the world's against them for some reason, but they have this hope that they'll one day succeed and always continue to strive. Second is artisan, is a person who takes pride in his work because without pride and passion in your work doesn't really come out to be anything sufficient. So an example of an artisan is someone who, like a painter, who takes pride in his work by putting his initials or his signature on his paintings. The third is the innovator. An innovator is someone who can reinvent a job or task before your competition knows about it. For engineers, example, as engineers, we need to be able to, after we get out of college, we're going to have to reinvent and use things that are already in the real world to pretty much make a career out of that. The next is waiter/waitress. The person who thinks like a waiter or waitress is someone who goes the extra mile in their work to improve what's already in front of the person. For example, if you go to a restaurant and you order some food, and then when the waitress comes back, they have extra fries or extra chips with their meal, that just shows how someone who, within certain boundaries, can go a little bit further in their work. Steve Jobs' Stanford speech. This really was a big section of this chapter, so I wanted to make one slide for this. But in 2005, Steve Jobs made a speech at Stanford University explaining his experiences at Reed College. And the speech had a lot more information than needed, but some main points about his speech was that he went to Reed College, dropped out, and just started taking classes that he was interested in, not classes that the university required him to take for his major. And as he was doing this, he was able to take classes that he would have never taken if he didn't drop out of college, such as a calligraphy class. And because he did that, it was able to help him grow as a person and help him create Macintosh, even though calligraphy and programming has really nothing in common. He was able to be creative and put those together. The two topics that were taken from this speech that Friedman talked about in this chapter was that creativity is all about connecting things that have never been connected before in that ways that people couldn't think of. And the second is creativity leads to discoveries. Examples of collaboration. The University of Alabama had a program called Creative Crimson Tide, which is a program that engaged students in and outside of the campus to promote the fine arts, because the fine arts and creativity were the main focuses that were declining at the University of Alabama. So a few things that they did were that they started activities outside of campus so they could promote the fine arts, and they pretty much, it was just people around the general area who pretty much presented their art or did music at this activities. Another example that Friedman gave was Nuvia School for Gifted Students. This institute was centered around creating someone's creativity and building on that so they could use that for the future. And their main focus at this institute was to pretty much, instead of having like a traditional instructor, I mean, they did have traditional lectures, but they really focused on group collaborations and tried to do problem solving in groups so they could add their input and have more ideas within that circle. In conclusion, the average standard is increasing. It's always coming up every year, and it's going to continue to increase every year. So everyone who has a higher education or a higher skill set is going to be able to keep up. Next is communicate with others around you. Although you're creative, it won't be as helpful unless you use it with the people around you, because you only can be creative as the group that you're in. Next is teach creativity and skills properly. Nuvia Institute was a school that brought this about, because without having a good base, it's impossible to be creative in a particular way. Put your focus on a variety of objectives. Steve Jobs, as he attended recall, or as he dropped out and started taking classes, he was able to broaden his, point of views on certain matters and was able to succeed later on. And also, lastly, implement creative ideas. It's important to implement creative ideas because although you're creative, have a good base, have a variety of skill sets, none of those matter unless you act on the ideas that you have and just continue to work on them until you succeed. Does anyone have any questions? And also have one more comment. If you guys are done filling out the forms, could you bring them to the center of the room so I can just come by and pick them up? That'll be easier. If not, then you can just pass them to me after class.
I'm going to hold mine.
Okay.